right, we are live. I'm super excited to talk about this wild, weird labor market. I'm here with two finance pros. We have Fred Hubler and Antwone Harris. And Antwone, I want to kick it right over to you first. Talk to me about the current state of the U.S. labor market. What do you like? What don't you like? Talk to me about what you're seeing from your perspective.
Well, Brian, thanks for having me. I mean, these headline numbers have been very surprising, actually. The hiring rate has been very robust. We still have very low unemployment that we haven't seen since the 1960s. So when I kind of look at these headline numbers, though, I kind of peel the onion back a little bit. And it's not as sanguine as it may first appear. So I tend to be in the camp. I'm thinking that we may start to see a slowdown in hiring as the year progresses. But as of now, everybody that wants a job is working. They may not be working in the exact type of job that they want. But if you want to have a paycheck, you can get a paycheck. You go out, you're spending money, and it's keeping the economy afloat, and it's keeping us growing at a faster pace than many quote unquote experts had predicted last year and the year before. So things are progressing well in general.
And Antwone, talk to me about the numbers. We had a March jobs report come out. Over 300K new jobs added. We're still hanging below 4% unemployment for how many months now? I mean, this is highly unusual for this labor market to be this red hot. How do you break down the numbers?
Well, we're seeing a lot of growth come from the healthcare sector. That's the largest growing area. And that's to be expected. When you look historically, you had 85 years of consecutive growth in the healthcare sector, except 2020 when everybody was shut in because of COVID, right? So that I think is consistent and will be persistent. You're seeing hiring pick up in the government, and I'm here in DC. So the government is a little slower to get back on track, but they've been hiring very robustly. That's continued. You're seeing a lot of hiring in construction, et cetera. But when you look at the broad numbers, the 303,000 that we saw last month in new jobs that were available, a lot of those are lower paying jobs. And we haven't seen the wages increase as one might expect. So it hasn't been as inflationary as we may anticipate. And the Fed is more focused on wage growth versus the overall employment numbers. Sure. And I kind of look at that as I'm considering this as a financial advisor. I'm thinking about this in terms of how it may impact my clients, the markets, et cetera. So I'm looking at it taking this with a grain of salt and kind of peeling the onion back and looking at it at a little deeper level.
Fred, are the numbers telling the whole story?
So thank you for having me. Thank you for doing it alphabetical and letting Antwone go first. I grew up with the X-Files, so I trust nobody. And I grew up with Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. Every 10 out of the 11 out of the last 12 job original get revised down every month last year. And so far, it's been every month this year. So the headline numbers, which grab the attention, are not as pretty as the 2 or 3 weeks later when they slide in on page 12, not front page. So I really find it hard to put the data together. And it's a function of what's really going on versus what the reporting on what's going on. So we can talk about the reporting, what they're going on, but as Antwone said, kind of going under into the onion. So just as like the stories that are out there, in my opinion, technology companies are basically the best positioned people to look in the future because they kind of make the future. They make it happen.
Sure.
Not one of them is hiring. Most of them are firing. And if they're not firing, they're freezing. And if you look at most of them, they're doing both. So they're looking in the front saying, we got enough people and we're getting rid of some of the people we have now. Getting to what Antwone said about inflation. Inflation has been more than job growth for the last 3 years. And of the jobs, and again, you got to really look for this because this isn't the stuff you see on the headline news. March full-time jobs were down 6,000 and part-time jobs were up 691,000 jobs. So all of those numbers are part-time and 2, 3, 4 jobs. And you got to go out of your way for impartial think tanks and groups that don't have an agenda. They have no pushing. thing to push. They're not left or right. And one of the ones we looked at, and I can send you the links or put them out there, they reviewed true unemployment. So you add in the people that just got fatigued from looking for a job and they're burned out, and or 2 or 3 part-time jobs, but they really want to have one full-time job. That number is 24%. And so that's scary. And the discouraged workers, there's no way to ever report on them. So I am not implying that every number has someone's finger on the scale saying they're lying about it on purpose. It's just the data is bigger than the people reporting. And it's really no different than some of the things we're seeing outside of employment. Crime's down because now the local don't have to report it anymore. They used to have to report, and now they don't have to report. So crime's down because, is it really down, or is it down because they're not? And so it's that type of stuff for the casual listener, the casual person who has a full-time job. They don't have time to go look for the truth. They're like, all right, jobs are doing good. I should keep my job. We have had more turnover in hiring in our office in the last 3 years than the last 20 years combined. And it's a function of who's available. May not really be a good fit. They got to get somebody. And then once you have somebody, they're not who they thought they were. And, we all hired those people. So I haven't yet benefited from what we think is going on in the employment world, because at the real level for white collar workers that are college bound, they're kind of sticky. And if they're not sticky, there's a reason someone got rid of them. And there's not a ton of them going in. And there's a lot of fields where new people aren't even coming in. So all the layoffs we're talking about haven't been really impacted by AI. No one's lost their job by AI yet. That's still ahead of us. And so for me, the jobs report really looks like a tale of two cities. Regionally, and maybe where Antwone is, it's healthy, good health, and people have the job they want, and it's the job they need, which is the other thing. Most people don't have enough income on the jobs they need. So inflation outpaced wages 76% of the time in the last couple of years. Credit card debt. So this is what I'm looking at. If employment is as healthy as it is, these numbers wouldn't be as ugly as they are. So U.S. credit card debt increased 7 straight quarters to a lifetime high, like a world of over $1 trillion in credit card debt. And this is the debt people can't pay off at the end of the month. And it's trending the wrong direction. So 6,000 part-time jobs and worldwide, global, at least in the U.S., highest credit card debt in the world. And we thought after 2008, people were going to go on a debt diet, because 2008 was kind of everyone's buying stuff and leasing and buying houses they couldn't afford to impress people they didn't like with money they didn't have. And there was a repercussion to that. That repercussion for a lot of people, I don't think is short-lived. I think they're just getting by. They're using the credit card because it's all they have to buy the things, the medicine that they want. So I can go bigger.
And Fred, I want to jump back in, because I think, before we unpack some of this, I want to talk about the composite of the U.S. labor market. And Antwone, I know you work with a lot of pre-retirees and retirees, people who have moved up that labor horizon probably sooner than, a decade ago they envisioned. Antwone, what are the trends you're seeing as far as people exiting this labor market?
I mean, anecdotally, I just had a meeting with a client. We finished her plan. She's in her late 60s. She told me she was going to work another 3 years. She called me a month later. She was laid off. Forced retirement. That happens all the time. You have people that had anticipated working. They dealt with COVID and decided they were going to retire early because they just kind of carpe diem kind of thing. And now what will happen is some of those people may come back into the labor force. They may be forced to try to come back in a little later, but it's difficult. You see what happened with Belichick, right? He thought he was going to be working, and he's sitting on the sideline, and they're talking about, well, he's not qualified. He has 6 Super Bowl rings, but he's not qualified to be a football coach anymore. So there's a lot of distortions in these data. The labor force participation rate is well below where it was pre-COVID. If you remained on that same trajectory as far as a consistent labor force participation, there'd be another couple million people looking for jobs right now, right? So that all those data are backed out. The data are absolutely flawed. When the way they collect these data, they do a survey for employers and a survey for households, and they rotate it every few months, right? Well, the response rate the median was 70% pre-COVID. In January, the response rate was 27%. Nobody's replying to the survey anymore. So over 70+% of the people aren't even bothering to reply. So we don't know what the heck's going on, right? They're calculating the unemployment rate and the labor force participation based upon what they anticipate the population is. But you have people jumping over the border that nobody's accounting for, and they're taking a lot of these low-end jobs. So when you have 303,000 jobs that are emerged as a headline, typically a healthy economy can handle 100,000 jobs a month before inflation starts to kick in and wages start to push the inflation up, right? We're at 3 times that. Well, why have the wages not crept up? Well, there are more people in the marketplace absorbing these jobs that are being accounted for, and they're low-end jobs. So now if you want to find someone that can do a white-collar job to do your computer managing or programming or what have you, you can't find them. And as Fred pointed out, you have 255 tech companies laying people off. The people that want to hire, the companies that want to hire can't hire the right people. And you can find someone to come in and, clean a countertop or something like that, but you're not getting these really robust jobs that are paying 6 figures that are really going to support the economy longer term. And when you look at the small business survey, I'm a small business owner. Fred's a small business owner. You're a small business owner. The small business survey typically leads the federal data by several months. The small business people are saying their confidence levels are at all-time lows. Mm-hmm. That we haven't seen since not all time, but that we haven't seen since 2012, right? And their projected hiring is at 11%. It hasn't been that low since the bottom of COVID, right? May 2020. So the small businesses are saying we're not hiring. They hire over 60% of the people in this country. So if they're not going to hire, and you have all these robust headline numbers, something is wrong. The data are not being collected properly. The small businesses are not going to be hiring. If people are working, they're going to be at lower end jobs. And as Fred pointed out, inflation is still ticking up and the wages are not keeping up. So at some point, I think in the latter part of this year, we're going to start to see the chickens come home to roost. And I think we're going to have a different headline.
And Fred, that's a good pivot back to one of the points you brought up earlier. You talked about AI adoption, how it's not necessarily forcing people out of their positions, but some of these small businesses figured out they can replace the people who left and job hopped with AI and don't miss a thing. Fred, how do you see that factor in play?
So it's interesting, but we're going to be alive. Hopefully all of us will be alive to see it. Most revolutions, the Industrial Revolution, you left the Agricultural Revolution, you figured out how to farm bigger and you got more equipment. You used the plow and the cows. The Industrial Revolution, you moved from the outskirts to the cities and now you're in swamp, sweatshops and that's where unions showed up because you were working 80 hours a day. But most revolutions had the jobs that were going and then the new jobs. You're no longer running, being a stagecoach with a horse. You're learning how to fix the Model T and how to work at the assembly line. This next digital revolution of information. So the digital revolution we're in, it's new computers. The information revolution with AI, there's no jobs for us, people that breathe. There's no jobs for us as they take things, as it starts to come in. So it is, sadly, I think one of the things that is a question that no one has an answer on. And I think AI should be doing, as Antwone, they should be cleaning my office, not doing artwork. Like if I want to see, Sylvester Stallone boxing Gandhi, I'll do it myself if I want to. AI is taking the wrong jobs off of us. Like if we should be doing art and making music, not the AI, but so AI has a better, marketing than we do. So I do see there's going to be a huge disconnect, and it's interesting no matter how you do it, and capitalism is the system we're in. If you end up taking away people's means to make a living, you have to replace that with some sort of ways to make a living, which sounds awfully like socialism. At the end of the day, and I want to see the Star Trek episode where they stopped using money, because that's the episode I want to see, because everyone's happy. And you get to do what you want to do, and you want to be a captain, you want to be a cook, you want to make whatever you want to do. There's hundreds of years between, that the system failing and the new, let's all just do together and play with your strengths. And, that's still science fiction. And I don't know if we're going to ever be alive to look at that. To Antwone's point, at the end of everything he mentioned, which is exactly, I was afraid I'd be here with someone saying, no, the jobs are right. Everything's real. Trust the government. I'm like, Brian might never invite me back. I didn't know Antwone before this. We didn't really talk about what we're going to say. And I'm like, you know what? Worst case is I'll never get invited back, but I'm going to say my truths. And luckily, I think we're all seeing the same thing. Yeah. And what we're seeing again, and we're not the only ones seeing it, isn't what the world's saying. And so systems in general do not like to be changed by the people benefiting in the system, whether it's political, whether it's economic, whether it's social.
Fred, who's benefiting? Who's benefiting right now?
I think there's a clique and we're not in it. And the clique is people that have a lot of money, people have a lot of power. And what I don't know, and I don't care. Like, I don't know if 9/11 was an inside job. I don't care. I'm keeping my head down and I'm doing the best for my clients as Antwone is. Trying to look beyond the board. But information now is no longer actionable because then you have to question the source of the information. And even the best sources of information, even to Antwone's point, the source is flawed. Inflation is flawed because they don't talk about the things that we're housing and medical. Well, that's the two biggest things. Oh, we don't talk about that. So when you're able to say, I'm going to come up with the inflation numbers, but then I'll carve out the things that actually look ugly, and everyone's okay with that. And it's not a Biden thing. This has been the way it's always been. It's like, this is not a current political system. It's just the system saying, well, we'll carve that out. And they'll have valid reasons. But that's the part that's the most frustrating because all we're trying to do is see the board and it's fuzzy because what we're being told, like, is that really true? Like before we were told, we were told something. All right, that's true. Unemployment 6%. All right, that's what it is. But as we all kind of, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. Or my clients are saying no. When minimum wage is also factoring into this. One of our clients owns 18 franchises. Fast food. And I asked him if he's like, I already have the kiosk ordered. I'm going to fire a third of my people. I'm like, why? Because no one wants a $15 hamburger at a fast food joint. And that's the price it would be. So the people that are pushing for reform for the right reasons, again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. They don't understand the repercussions in the system that are downstream. Yeah. And so if you're a business owner, rule number one is don't lose money. Rule number two is don't forget about rule number one. If you're going to increase my labor costs, I'm going to redo my labor need and have less labor costs. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And Antwone, I want to throw this back to you because we're talking about, this evolving workplace structure. And I think commercial real estate needs to be a part of that conversation and the evolution we're seeing there. Me and Fred are Philly guys. Antwone, I know you're a Philly sports fan. You're located in DC. You and I have never talked about this. I mean, what are the commercial real estate trends, concerns, evolution that you're seeing in DC Metro?
Yeah, I mean, in this area, it's not doing well. Yeah. It hasn't. And my office, I have an office downtown, but I rarely go down there. I work from my home office a lot. I have some friends, some close friends in commercial real estate, and they're suffering here in Washington, D.C. Now, what I have seen recently in certain areas, different areas like New York, et cetera, some of that commercial real estate is doing a bit better than had been anticipated. So some companies are forcing their people back to work. For many different reasons. So you're seeing, I think Truist announced that they're going to have a mandatory 5 days in the office starting here soon. So there's certain pockets where it's improving a bit. My wife happens to work for the government at a pretty high level, but she works from home and she can go in, one day a week. So I really don't see a real long-term shift back to where we were pre-pandemic. I think you'll start to see some people coming back to work. But one of the reasons that you're seeing low labor workforce participation is because people want flexibility. And you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube, right? When I'm able to take my kids to the doctor without worrying about my boss staying over top of me saying, you're going to get a demerit because you're not here exactly at 8:30. I mean, It's hard to reverse that, right? The population, the largest part of our population, continues to age, and they're at a point where they just don't want to hear it. If they're going to continue to work and be productive, they need more flexibility. So I think that's going to remain. And Fred, I've agreed with almost everything you said thus far.
Here he goes.
I've never spoken to you before. I don't know you, but I disagree a little bit around the AI thing, Brian. I do not think AI is really going to start to replace people en masse here in the near term. I think there's some things that are going to happen to help promote productivity. What we've seen, you made a historical reference, Fred. What we've seen historically, typically, is that some jobs go away. That is true. Some specific jobs go away, but jobs in general typically increase with increased technology. They said jobs were going to go away because of computers. They said they were going to go away in the Industrial Revolution. You had the Luddites coming in and breaking the machines up back in the 1800s, right? They said jobs are going to go away because of the internet. They said, I'm a financial advisor. 20 years ago, they said robo-advisors are going to take your job away, right? But a robo-advisor can do an asset allocation, but they can't talk to you about how you feel about money, right? What your experiences have been around money growing up. They can't attend the funeral for when your mom dies, right? So this is a relationship business. So what I'm thinking about in terms of how AI may start to impact work going forward is that you need to break work down into their component task and then start to think about where you can bring AI in to outsource some of those tasks. So most people don't even think about what they do. They just do it, right? As a financial advisor, I have to create content to kind of educate my audience, right? So writing blogs used to take me hours. So now I use AI to kind of get a straw man. I'll go through, put my voice to it, and I can get a blog out in 30 minutes versus 5 hours, right? So that saves me a lot of time. But I don't think AI is going to replace me. Now, when I start to think about me as a small business owner and how I have to think about my component tasks, bring this to a larger corporation with tens of thousands of employees. So you need a consultant to come in to first define your work. What tasks are we going to be able to outsource to AI as it evolves? There will be some. And then, can I feed it the right data? Can I feed the data in a manner that is private, that is going to be acceptable by the regulators? Do I have the infrastructure to process and interpret the data? Then how do I apply the data? How do I start to leverage the current employee? So what new jobs are going to be created? All these different things are going to happen when AI is formally introduced, and it's hard to fathom right now. So I don't think this is something that we need to be super concerned about. Eliminating jobs en masse here in the near term is going to evolve. There'll be different things that need to happen, but it's a longer runway, in my personal opinion.
I agree with you. Actually, that's exactly what was in my head. So I forgot. I apologize if that's not what came out of my mouth. That transition is a long-term, generational transition. And there's always going to be jobs. And as you know, there's always going to be consultants. Whenever there's a problem, there's a consultant there that's going to find a way of billing you and hopefully solve the problem. So I could not agree with you more. And I, if we could edit whatever I said to make you think that I wasn't agreeing with you, we can do that.
Maybe I misheard. So I may have misinterpreted.
I probably misspoke. My wife has, alphabetical and by date, the things I misspoke.
I'm married too. I've been bludgeoned to death too. So yeah, I'm used to apologizing first. No problem.
So let's continue the conversation on changing, evolving workplace trends, because ever since 2020, everything got disrupted. My small business certainly got disrupted. I went from a hybrid office. I was hybrid before anybody was hybrid, to no office again. The workplace expectations, especially with this generation of workers who has never known a recession and has never worked in that, where they've always had the power over the employer. There are evolving sentiments toward work. Now, earlier we talked about how long can this ridiculously low unemployment rate last? I want to open it up to you, Fred, to talk about this trend, what we're seeing, varying sentiments toward work culture and how you see it all playing out. If you can get out your crystal ball, I'd love to hear it.
There's a few things there. when you're changing, so the changing demographics of jobs, we actually had someone, older person in our office, my longest tenured person in my office, wanted to slowly retire. As a financial advisor, you got to be smart, but you're not digging ditches. So I'm like, all right, 2 days a week, 2 days from home. COVID happened, 4 days at home. That's fine. Well, we're all back. And I need him in the office 4 days in the office because we have culture. I have other people. We've hired more people. And so that camaraderie, you can't get in Zoom. I'm sorry, you can't have the water cooler talk, and you can't hear someone else presenting an investment or presenting some sort of answer to a problem to say, oh, that's a great way to say it. Like, that's the kind of camaraderie that you don't do on Zoom if it just happens haphazardly. And we asked him, say, hey, we're going to come back. He's like, I don't want to. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I replaced him, and we gave him a package because you got to take care of the people that take care of you. And he's like, I don't understand why you're getting rid of me. I'm like, you said no to working 4 days a week. I need you here 4 days a week. I didn't even ask him to come back 5 days a week. Like, so that's not, and I would expect that from a younger generation. This guy was 60 plus. But as Antwone said, toothpaste was out of it. I mean, he was already ready. He was already probably those 2 days he wasn't working. He wasn't working for me either. He might not have been working at the office, but he also probably wasn't. But things were getting done, and I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, I don't care if it takes you 4 minutes to do it or 4 weeks. If your job is to do it, do it. So that's something I wasn't really expecting. And then we brought on new people, and they have no real skills, sadly, after college. And so we are not your first stop after college. You can't be, because I can't teach you how to answer the phone. I can't teach you how to. I mean, it's funny that, and again, these are great people, by the way. They're great, raised by great parents, I'm sure. And so one of the guys came and said, "Hey, I have a question." I'm like, I answered that yesterday on email. Oh, I didn't check it. I'm like, you should have checked it yesterday. Like I can't teach you how to do that. And as Dr. Phil would say, you can't fix stupid. I don't think they're stupid. I think they just don't know. And that's also a friction for all of us. And that's something that I wasn't expecting to have to deal with. And it's not just once, it's happening.
And I ran into that, with this post-pandemic work environment and evolving work sentiments. Pre-pandemic, I had done amazing finding great talent.
Yeah, you had great people.
You've known some of them. Absolutely. Post-pandemic, with the changing work sentiments and changes at higher education, I felt like I was running a nonprofit, training these people just for me to be their stepping stool.
And then they would leave anyway.
Yeah. As soon as they had an ounce of success, they're out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it's a challenge. And again, Antwone, we talked about AI replacing certain roles. There are a lot of tasks that those junior staff would have typically filled that I'm filling with AI. And rather than it taking them 3 days to complete it, AI is doing it for me instantly. So when we see this recession, there are jobs that are not coming back.
They're not going to come back, right?
Because I've already replaced it with technology.
There's some I guess people facing jobs that are high turnover that now there's a viable alternative for. Some of these jobs are not very fun, right? Do I want to stand here and get yelled at because you didn't get a large fry when you asked for, an extra large? I mean, like, do I want to deal with that when I could hop in a vehicle that I can rent from Uber now? You don't even have to own a car. I can rent one, drop some groceries off real quick, and make twice what I made before, and not have to be someplace at 8 o'clock in the morning and smell like, French fry grease when I come home. I mean, so some areas are having difficulty finding anyone to do the job, and are having to do things like, I know one company they're offering subsidized childcare so they can get people back in the workforce, so they can start to have some people to actually do the tasks that need to be done. I mean, Fred, I have the hardest time finding people to work, and it's a challenge. If you have a solution, we can talk about it offline. If you guys know a way for me to get some of this stuff done reliably without trying to hire somebody to do it, I'm all ears. I want to do it.
That's your next business.
So we've got about 60 seconds left. I want to keep this to exactly a half hour. We've got 3 Eagles fans on this, so I want to end with some hot Eagles takes. Fred, give me your hottest Eagles take.
I love and hate Howie Roseman. Like, and sometimes I'm like, what the, and others I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's the same conversation. It's a what the hell, and then what the hell. I am looking forward to the season. I wish, and I don't know if we'll ever know what happened last season. There is something outside of football, I think, disrupted the team.
Like that, there has to be.
Whether someone's sleeping with someone else, I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. I want them back. And I'd like to see Jalen who he was before he got the big contract. That's all I want. That's my two wishes. Not to have whatever happened happen again, and Jalen be Jalen. Like, let him play ball. And I don't know what's if the quarterback coordinator or the coach, let the guys play and leverage the team you have. And I hope they come back with the same camaraderie that they had when they were, even when they weren't winning, they still had that brotherhood. And that's something you can't repeat. You can't fake. But that's what attracts other people to come in and say, okay, I won't work for the gigantic salary. I'll work here to be with people that are fun to be around. And I'm hoping with the Kelsey's kind of retirement and the kind of guys that are going to be fun and have your back and tell you what you need to hear, but in a way that you'll hear it. I hope we don't lose that as all these veterans age out. And it's, NFL stands for not for long. And we just have to deal with that. So I'm joyfully optimistic. But I'm Philly sports. I'm used to having my heart broken anyway. So that's my
Antwone, scorched earth Eagles take.
It's not scorched earth. I think we're going offensive line round one. That's what I think. Then defense for the rest of the draft. So my friends and I get together. We do our draft predictions before the draft. Then we go to the bar and watch what actually happens. So we had Justin Jefferson, and then they picked I forgot what's his name, Jalen Reagor.
Right.
We all had yeah. So after that, I was like, it's been hard to predict after that draft. So that's what I'm expecting.
Is it tough to be an Eagles fan in Washington, D.C.?
No, I went to University of Maryland undergrad, and my roommates were Washington football team fans. I'm not going to say the former name, and I used to talk so much trash to those guys. It was really heated. It was real bad. It was really bad. It got real heated. So no, I'm proud.
Excellent.
Antwone, Fred, thank you so much for joining. This was a blast. We're going to take this offline. We have a few things to discuss.
Very good.
I appreciate everybody who tuned in. The replay will be available online as soon as we conclude this. So if you tuned in late, I encourage you to go back, watch the full episode. Thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Very good. Thank you.